When was the last time you visited an art museum? Going through a lot of artwork is a ton of fun, but it is exhausting as well. Halfway through the museum, you get exhausted both physically and mentally, but you keep going to the end with a slight sense of obligation, saying, "I don't want to waste the ticket money." This might be relatable to many people. When we are in an art gallery, we often assume that we have to give a closer look at every single painting, but do we really have to? If you go into a department store to buy a shirt, for example, you will not try on every single shirt. Instead, you will only select the ones you are most interested in. If so, why are we supposed to appreciate all the paintings on the wall? Next time you go into a gallery, why don't you go quickly, instead of stopping at every one of them? Some works will somehow exceptionally attract you, and some others won't. Then you ignore all the others, and spend a lot more time enjoying your favorite pieces. Girl with a Pearl Earring by Johannes Vermeer, a 17th century Dutch painter. The light falling on her face immediately attracts our attention, and the contrast between blue and yellow provides a distinct harmony. It's fascinating at the very first glance, and yet we never tire of looking at her, perhaps partly because of the conflicted look on her face. It's hard to tell if she is happy or sad, so you may have second thoughts every time you come back to her. This little ambiguity excites our imagination. Who is she? What does she feel on the inside? What is she looking at? If she is staring at the painter, what did he do to her, to make her look like this? This may not only be a portrait of a girl, but also a portrait of a relationship. The expression on her face is perhaps reflecting how she feels about him. Then what is that relationship? They could be a father and a daughter, lovers, or possibly a more complicated and intimate relationship. You can forget about seeking the right answer and simply enjoy the freedom of imagination. The Calling of St. Matthew by Caravaggio, 1600. It depicts the moment from the Bible where Jesus Christ calls on the Roman tax collector Matthew to follow him, and is often cited as a defining work of the Baroque movement. Though it's quite famous, there has been an unsolved mystery in this painting. We still don't know which man in the picture is St. Matthew. Scholars have been discussing this question for ages, but they haven't reached a consensus. So we don't have to stick to getting the right answer. We can enjoy the freedom of various interpretations. Besides, we don't need to appreciate the work in a religious context. You can simply enjoy the dynamic depiction of the movements and the bold contrast between light and dark. Also, you can imagine and construct a completely different story behind the scene. Furthermore, we don't necessarily have to be moved by the painting just because it is considered a masterpiece. If it doesn't pull on your heartstrings, there is no problem with it at all. When engaging with art, you can allow yourself to be more honest with your own feelings. The Night Watch by Rembrandt, perhaps the most famous work of his long career. Many of us have probably seen this before, but many of us might have not looked attentively at this painting. As soon as we recognize this picture, we tend to just give it a quick glance and think, "Oh, I have seen it before." Generally speaking, careful observation is quite difficult. When we classify an object as something we have already known, we tend not to give it a closer look anymore. For example, when we see somebody very familiar to us, our brain soon identifies the person, and we usually do not look further into him or her. Classification is a natural function of our brain to reduce the cognitive load. If we gaze at everything in our sight, we will soon be mentally depleted. However, we may overlook subtle, yet important changes, such as an alteration in her hairstyle, a shift in her mood from the previous day, or signs of poor health. Go back again to the piece by Rembrandt. It is known by the title, The Night Watch, but is it really a night scene? If you take the time to observe it, you will know that no one in the picture has a torch. The left hand of the man in the middle is casting a vivid shadow. In fact, the dark tone of the painting is due to discoloration with time. Someone called it the night watch, and it prevailed. The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh, permanently exhibited at the Museum of Modern Art or MoMA in New York City. Painted in June 1889, it depicts the view from the east-facing window of his hospital room. It is widely regarded as his masterpiece and considered to be one of the most iconic paintings in Western art. What makes it so captivating? There is an intriguing study from Michigan State University that has shed light on the potential of the arts. The research team shows that the most accomplished scientists, including Nobel Prize winners, were 2.8 times more likely than average to have an artistic hobby. There must be some correlation between intellectual achievements and artistic excellence. What is common to scientists and artists is their curiosity about the cosmos and their perseverance to describe their view of the world in their language. We see the reality, not directly, but through some human filters and biases. Scientists use mathematical languages to explain the world, while artists express their perception with colors and shapes. Vincent van Gogh was among one of them. Shortly before he finished this work, Van Gogh wrote to his sister that he struggled with the night sky. He wanted to communicate how the light and wind looked to his eyes. The Starry Night is probably a statement of his worldview. A challenge to describe the world in a way that nobody ever could.